All right, good morning. How are you all doing? Karibuni sana. Hope you're all well. This beautiful 6th day of March 2025. Glad that you could join us for today's daily analysis session. Apologies for starting off a couple of minutes late. A couple of things we did need to sort out in the back office, but we're glad that at least we could get this show on the road. So for the sake of guys who are joining us here for the first time, welcome to the Forex Daily Analysis. We do this every morning, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. in the morning, East African time. So feel free to join us. But also remember to like and subscribe as well as hit the bell notification so that at least anytime we're live, then you will be notified. So John Bobo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So we do have the rest of the team here. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat box. The team will be getting back to you, but I will also be looking at them towards the very tail end of this session. You know, your comments, your feedback, your compliments, your criticism, feel free to put them in the chat box. We will be looking at them. And remember, you don't really need to wait until the very end. Some of you wait until the very end when the session is ending. And unfortunately, those questions and requests are left in the chat box hanging. So make sure you do ask at least way before the session comes towards the tail end. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we'll start off with the watch list as always. So you can see right there, the 6th of March. This is basically what the game plan is going to be. Just a couple of changes, actually two. It's only the New Zealand dollar and the Swiss franc, which have switched sides based on what we were watching out for yesterday. So we'll do a brief recap of the currency pairs we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list, see what we can learn from it, and then we'll move on into the currency pairs for today. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning, price was somewhere here. I pointed out that the best time to look for the buyer was if we could get price coming back in within here. But the market just tapped within here very fast. This was just before or during the London market open, at around 11 or thereabout, price tapped in within here, went up quite fast, tapped within that area there. Of course, when the market came back in, we're expecting maybe to see something, that could tell us to look for buying opportunities here. But unfortunately, we just couldn't get that. You can see that the market continued to rally down all through the London session. During the US session, there was a bit of an attempt by the buyers to come in, but they just couldn't fully come in. Also, something to do with the NZDs. I know yesterday we were expecting weakness on the NZD pairs, but unfortunately, that wasn't really the case. Could be something maybe with the NZDs, possibly trying to follow the AUDs, because the AUDs and the NZDs sometimes and most of the time tend to move together. So maybe the NZDs to some extent are following what the AUDs are doing. Nothing fundamental, but I guess maybe it's just what the big boys are up to. So the next one is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out and what the game plan was. So in the morning, price was here. I pointed out that the best thing was to wait for price to pass breach to the upside. If the market pulled back in within here, then we could potentially try to see whether we could get buys within this area here. And you can see that's exactly what the market did. So it broke to the upside. And like we keep on pointing out, you don't really need to feel bad about missing out on the buy as the market is going up. Because, if you hit buys when the market is going up, on this leg right here, it's very easy for you to get stopped out on this pullback coming in. But you can see that once you wait for the pullback, that next attempt, you can even see that it actually even went higher, than this. So this one worked out pretty well. But unfortunately, moving into today, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can trade. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out, and also the game plan of what to expect. So we're expecting maybe price to tap back in within here and maybe the buyers to show up. You can see that price came down back within here. If you look at the times, this was at around 5:30. The buyers attempted to push to the upside, but unfortunately, they just couldn't go far. I guess the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar, the strength. Anytime you see a currency pair or a chart moving sideways, then that means that there's a serious fight that's going on. So for this one, the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar both fighting in terms of strength, but also in terms of weakness. Sometimes, and when two weak currency pairs are fighting, you will also find the market going sideways. But for this particular case, these two currency pairs are strong, and unfortunately, you can't see that the fight is still going on. The market is going sideways. And unfortunately, moving into today, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can trade, because we don't really want to sign up, on that sideways movement, unless you fancy trading ranges. Some of us do not. So we will be staying away from that one today. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could get sells. Unfortunately, yesterday the Swiss franc pairs did not work out. There were some fundamentals that came out strong, but the strength just did not show. So for this one, we're expecting to get some selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out, and also a game plan of what to expect. So in the morning, price was here. We're expecting maybe to get the big sellers showing up within this region here for us to look for sells. At one point in time, you can see that the market actually probed, came back in, but the buyers just couldn't slow down. You can see that they really pushed the market to the upside. So unfortunately for us on that one, yesterday there was no trade, and moving into today, unfortunately, not really a currency pair we will be trying to trade. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we were also trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. So you can see what the game plan was. In the morning, price was somewhere here. I pointed out that you shouldn't really be looking for sells unless you get a breach and a hold to the downside. Maybe it could have been a small sell, not really the best and the clearest of opportunities down within here. But you can see that there was an attempt by the buyers to push the market to the upside. The sellers continued pushing the market down, but the buyers eventually showed up, and you can see that the price actually held to the upside of this region right here. So unfortunately for us, also on that one, no selling opportunity yesterday, and moving into today, unfortunately, not really a currency pair we will be trying to trade. So last but not least, for review, we do have the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out and what we're expecting. Price was somewhere here. I wanted to see whether we could get some buys down here, or at least somewhere within this region if we did get the price coming in back within here. And hopefully we did see a sign of the big boys showing up. But if you look at how the sellers actually showed up, and they pulled up, within this region right here, this was quite aggressive. It's like the buyers were just standing, they just couldn't say anything. And you can see that the market actually continued to push to the downside. And of course, once price broke beneath this region to the downside, unfortunately, at that point in time, there was no trade for us. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list today. So before we jump in onto the currency pairs for today and see what the markets have in store for us today, let's look at a couple of screenshots we did get. So we'll start off with this one from Esther. Esther, if you're here, you're going to be watching later on. Shout out to you. So this is on the euro against the US dollar. So I can see you did get a buying opportunity down here, close the trade somewhere high up within there, which was very good. So, and at least in terms of you closing the trade there, you must have been very happy. At least you did end up not having to hold on to the trade, when the market was coming down, and you got as much as you could get on that trade, which was good. And then when the market showed up in terms of the buyers pulled up within this region here on the pullback, then as the market was taking off and lifting off this region right here, you got the buy within there, which was very, very good. So shout out to you for this one. Very good entry, especially on this one. As price is going up, the only thing you just need to make sure is to bring your stop loss up, because you can imagine price has gone up, you've already made gains. Just looking at this setup of this trade and what's going on here, definitely looks like you're already up maybe like a 1:3. So, in case something happens, and, anything can happen. I mean, Trump can say something and the next thing you find the price back within here, even if it's not anything to do with the fundamentals. And, from all these gains to a loss might not be very good. At least at this point in time when price is high up there, at least your stop loss should be somewhere within this area, or at least within break even. But in terms of the attempt, that's very, very good. So keep up the good work. So we also did get some 2 screenshots from Millicent. Millicent, if you're watching, shout out to you as well. So this is on the Australian dollar against Japanese yen. So I can see you got a very, very good buy down within here before the market started taking off to the upside. And of course, once the market started to move in your favor, I can see that your stop loss is way above your point of entry and just beneath the buyers who are pushing the market to the upside. So this is some really, really good trading. So shout out to you for that, Millicent. And also on the euro against the Japanese yen, So I can see that you also got the buy on this one as well, especially if you got it when the market pulled back in within this region, then that must have been a very, very good entry. Stop loss way above your point of entry, but at least beneath the buyer who's pushing the market to the upside. So this is really good. So shout out to you for that. Seems like the yens did pay off quite well. So shout out to Esther and Millicent, the only two people who sent the screenshots in yesterday. It seems like it was an all ladies affair yesterday. The day before yesterday, the screenshots we saw are from the guys. So let's see how things end up going. So remember, guys, if you do get any screenshots, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there on the video description. And also feel free to reach out to us in case you do have any queries. If you do need any help in terms of trading, also feel free to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy and pleased to actually help you. So jumping straight into matters today. So for the sake of guys who just joined in, this is what the watch list is going to be looking like today. So this 6th day of March, you can see that we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on the Great British Pound, the Euro, the Australian dollar, and the New Zealand dollar. And we're going to be mixing and matching that up with the currency pairs on the sell side. Then we'll finish off with gold, silver, the US 30 and the NAS 100. And you can see those ones, even based on what we had yesterday, still staying on the same sides. So we're going to start off with the GBP pairs. So the first one off the line is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And we were expecting maybe to get some sort of a pullback, maybe coming back in within here, or somewhere down within this area here, or potentially maybe a breach to the upside, maybe the market holding within here, and we could look for the buying opportunities. So in the morning, price was here. There was an attempt by the sellers to come down. Then the market went up. Then you can see that there was some slight pullback that came in within here, which was really good. You can see that the buyers showed up. The sellers were still adamant, but much later on, if you look at the times, at around 5:30 or thereabouts, that's when the market did actually take off from within this region to the upside, coming back in within this area here. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. So in as much as price did move to the upside, it's not really moved far and beyond, the areas that we had pointed out yesterday, which means that the game plan still remains the same. So we will be waiting to see what happens. In terms of looking for buying opportunities, you don't really want to be getting your buys, especially when price is so close within this area here. At least if we could get the market pulling back within here, and don't get some sort of FOMO, the fear of missing out, thinking that price can't come back in. In terms of looking for the buys here, it's not a good area because you can see that the sellers are also holding within here. We have some sort of a minor SNR, and even if the market breaks to the upside of this area and you get the buys within here, you could easily end up getting frustrated because the market could easily end up bouncing between these two regions here. So it's either the market comes down, or potentially if the buyers do show up and we blast through this region to the upside on the pullback, at least we could attempt to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So ideally, that should be the game plan, but also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but like we always keep on saying, and we keep on repeating, it's better to have a region and not need it rather than to not have a level and the market shows up there and you don't even know that you're supposed to be looking for buys and the opportunity just slips away. So just make sure that you just keep it there. Let's see what happens. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're also trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. And there was also this region right here that I had pointed out that maybe we just could get the market just coming back in within this area here. And on the way up, maybe a region you did need to watch out for. But I guess the market and the buyers were just too strong. The sellers within here just couldn't show up. But like we always keep on pointing out, it's always best to wait for the market to push to the upside. So when the market pushed to the upside, and if I do zoom in within this area, you'll see that the market pushed to the upside aggressively, but there was a pullback that came in almost somewhere back within this region here. And you can see that the next push to the upside actually moved even way farther than this move right here. So like we keep on pointing out, let the big boys break the level. And that's what they did with this one. Wait for the pullback. At least that will give you a much easier time on the charts. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be keeping our eyes locked on. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So right now the market seems like it's attempting to break to the upside, but I wouldn't advise you to look for the buys just yet, because the market can easily probe within this area here, because you can see that the bars have gone up. The sellers look like they're coming in quite aggressive, but remember, we can't base our analysis on active candles. So this candle right here could easily become some sort of a pin bar, but at least it's better to wait and see if we can get the market maybe coming back in. If it does hold within here, maybe during the London session, we get the pullback coming in and the market comes back, somewhere within this region, maybe at around 5:30. I think some very good buying opportunities could happen off there. The risk with looking for the buys up here is that already the market has been going up for a significant amount of time. So when the market keeps moving higher and higher, more and more people are jumping in that direction. And that's the reason why many people actually end up getting caught up, because it's very obvious that we should be looking for buys. The market is going up. So for this one, at least if the market pulls back, stops out quite a number of late buyers high up within this region, then I think you could find some very, very good buying opportunities happening off this area here. But in case that doesn't happen, then it's okay. Don't look for the buys just yet. Wait for a repeat of something like this, whereby the market breaks to the upside, wait for the pullback, to come back in within this region. And at least if the pullback comes in and we get a similar scenario to what happened yesterday, at least the next buy somewhere within here will actually be much better and have lesser risk, than actually trying to jump in on the buy within this leg going up. So just make sure you watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. In case the market finds its way back there, there's a slim chance it could find its way back there, considering the fact that the USDs have been showing a lot of weakness. But in case that does end up being the case, then just at least bear in mind that that's going to be the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive buying opportunities. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So this was what the game plan was yesterday. And the morning price was here. Wanted to see the pullback come back in within here. During the London session, that didn't happen. You can see that the market just pulled around within this area here, but eventually the market came back down. And you can see that at 4 price was within a seller's region, pushed to the downside at around 5:30. You can see that price was back in within some sort of a buyer's region. And off this area here, you can see that at least the buyers were pushing to the upside, which was much, much later on that the market really took off to the upside. So for this one, the buys did work as well. So today we will be still looking for buying opportunities, but as always, we will be waiting for those pullbacks. So these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. So let's wait and see what happens. Already you can see some sort of a pullback is coming back in. The market has found some sort of a resistance area there. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. At least if the market can come back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here, at least we'll get some proper risk to reward moving to the upside, and at least we could be targeting here. Definitely you will need to manage your trade there, even if you will be targeting areas much, much higher. So watch out for that. Watch out for the region at the bottom as well. For as long as at least we're still holding above that region to the upside, the buys should still be valid. And at least remembering that the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive buying opportunities. If the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately for us, there will be no buying opportunities. So the next one and the last one is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So this is what the 3 levels are going to be looking like today. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get at least the sellers within that resistance area where the market is reacting. There is a major level back within here where we're expecting to possibly get the market coming down. Hopefully the London big boys push the market to the downside. Then if the market sets itself up properly, within this area here, then during the US session, we will be attempting those buying opportunities to push to the upside. So watch out for that. Also watch out for this region right here. Although the Swiss franc is also really getting hammered, just like the USD and the Canadian dollar. So you can see that this on the market was just going up yesterday. The market has at least found an area of resistance within here. So we'll be waiting to see what happens on the pullback. There's some big buyers who are sitting somewhere within here. In case the market needs that price, then at least we will also be ready for that. So that's pretty much it in terms of the GBP pairs. So hopefully you've taken note of that. So right now we're going to move on to the euro pairs and mix and match them up with the currency pairs on the sell side. So we're going to start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can't see what the game plan was on this one. So I had pointed out these three areas and also potentially what we could have expected. The sellers had come in the day before, and the buyers were coming up very, very slowly. So we're expecting maybe to get these sellers to possibly end up showing up. But you can see that the buyers really sped up, at the very last minute within here. And sometimes the market does end up doing that. So I had pointed out that in case the market pulls back, then at least we could look for buys here. But I had also pointed out that in case the market breaks to the upside on the pullback, then we could attempt some buying opportunities within here. And you can see that the market actually broke to the upside quite strong, pulled back in within here, tapped within this area. You can see that the market did actually take off to the upside. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for today. So we have the conservative right at the top. Within there, we have the semi-aggressive conservative region somewhere within this region right here, and we will have the aggressive area down within this region right here. So we will be waiting to see what happens. In terms of looking for the buying opportunities right now, it's not really the best of ideas, because in any case, you can see that the market is also starting to get into some sort of a small minor range within here. And at least, even if you are to look for the buying opportunities, or the best area where it seems like the buyers could be sitting right now is actually somewhere down within here. But at least if we get the market giving us a much deeper pullback, also stopping out quite a number of late buyers, because, based on statistics, 95% of people lose because they wait for too much confirmation on the charts. So, when the markets were down here, many people are not thinking buys. But once the market started going to the upside, definitely the whole world starts jumping in on those buys. And right now, when the market starts to range within here, there are very many people who don't want to miss out because they missed out on the buys earlier. So they're thinking maybe on the next push, they'll actually be in on it. But unfortunately, there is a high probability they will be getting stopped out. But at least you should be grateful you came for the Afriforex daily analysis this morning, so you're well informed. So let's wait and see if we could get price coming back in within here. I think the best buying opportunities are definitely down here. There's a bit of a long shot price coming back in within this area here. But I mean, if the price or the big boys actually need that price, then at least we should be ready for that. Alternatively, if the buyers or the sellers don't actually show up and the price doesn't come back in within any of these two regions, then we will be waiting to see whether we can get price at least breaking to the upside on the pullback. At least we'll try to see whether we can get that buying opportunity somewhere off here. But based on the fact that we have this probe, it's a bit of a high risk area, especially if we first don't get the market breaking to the upside, because this is a very big telltale sign, to tell us that there are definitely some sellers who are sitting, somewhere within that region there. You don't really want to be going head on with them. So watch out for that. Let's see what happens during the London session, and of course, moving into the US session. The cards and the USDs tend to normally move a lot during the US session. So let's wait and see what ends up happening on that one. So the next one, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're watching out for buys. You can see what the game plan was right here yesterday. Price was somewhere here. We're expecting the market to go up, maybe get some sort of a pullback coming in. Unfortunately, the pullback just couldn't come in. You can see that the buyers really pushed aggressively. The pullback only came back until within here. And this definitely just tells us that the USD is really getting hammered, especially when you see the pullbacks coming in very, very shallow. That means that the other currency pair, or the one that's getting hammered, it means that it doesn't really have that much strength to end up fighting back. So you can see that this one generally has just continued going up higher and higher. These are the three levels we had set for today. The market seems to be attempting to break to the upside. Some sort of a probe that's happened here. Let's see if the buyers are actually going to be sustaining price above that region for us to look for the buying opportunities. These are the two other areas that we do have down here. Bit of a long shot based on the fact that, like I pointed out, the USD is really getting hammered. But the big boys can also pull a real shocker, whereby many guys are busy hitting buys. Then all of a sudden, some candle shows up within here, some sort of a wick out of nowhere. And so many people actually end up getting caught up. So let's wait and see what happens. Maybe a bit more of a fight within this region before we jump in on the buys. But I would say that the buys within there are a bit high risk. You really need to be very careful about them. But I'm really hoping a lot of people could possibly end up getting stopped out within this area right here. And if the market comes back in within this area, at least I think some proper buying opportunities might be happening. Maybe somewhere within this area. There's also an SNR somewhere within here that is much better off than looking for the buys within there. So let's just hope the pullback comes in, people get stopped out, and I'm not a sadist. Some of you may hear me say that I'm hoping guys get stopped out and you think I'm some sort of a sadist, but it's the way the market works. Someone has to lose for you to gain. So that's the way the market works. So the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas I had pointed out where we could have potentially tried to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. And you can see also some illustrations of what we're expecting. Maybe hopefully the pullback coming in, that didn't happen. The market went to the upside. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get proper pullbacks coming in within this area here. But you can see that the market went to the upside, up within this area quite fast, continued moving up, get some sort of an SNR within there before the market continued moving up higher. So this one was a bit of a tricky one, but it's good to see from the screenshots. I think it was Millicent who did get this one, and I think the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So shout out to you for that. So for this one for today, we're still going to be keeping up with the buying opportunities. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can take note of them. So aggressive conservative, semi-aggressive conservative here. At least we have the market sign to give us some sort of a pullback. I'm really hoping the pullback comes in all the way till somewhere within this region here. If we get the market slowing down within here, and hopefully during the US session, prices back in within this area here, I think we could look and get some good buying opportunities within there. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom in case the market finds its way there. And if the big boys do need that price, then at least we will also be ready for that. So moving on into the next one. This is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we will be trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. And I think one thing you can also note, just looking at all the euro pairs that we've looked at, especially for those of you that have a keen eye in terms of correlation, and you have an analytical mind, you can see that all the euros are going up, which means that the big boys are really pumping their money into the euros. You can see that even for this one, just like the euro against the US dollar, there hasn't been, a deep pullback that has come in. You can see that the pullbacks are very shallow, which tells us that the big boys are really pushing, just like what we saw on the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, we'll also be helping the big boys in terms of, pumping the euro, but we need to do it in a smart way. In terms of looking for the buys now might not really be the best of ideas. Let's either wait and see if we could get price coming back in, within this area here. And I'm really hoping at least we can get one proper pullback. Since the market started moving up, we've not really had a proper pullback that we can read. It's just the market just giving some very shallow pullbacks and continuing to push to the upside. So at least if we can get a deep pullback, something we can read, something to incite the opposite party, definitely a bunch of buyers are sitting here. We could get some very, very good buying opportunities. But if the market breaks to the upside, at least if we get a nice strong breach and a pullback we can read, I think the next best buy would definitely be somewhere within here. So I guess those are the two options we will be watching out for. In case the market just breaks and sits within here, well, you could possibly look for buys then, because the market has been giving some very shallow pullbacks, but you need to be very, very careful in terms of how you go about it. And considering the fact that the pullbacks are very shallow, that means that you have to read the story on a very smaller time frame. Because on the 15-minute time frame, it's not very clear. So if you're waiting for something clear on the 15, price will just possibly continue moving up and you'll be left. So watch out for that. But of course, in case it's not something you can end up reading, remember you don't really need to force. That's the reason why many people get stopped out, because you're trying to force issues on the charts. If it's something you can't read, it doesn't follow your trading plan, it's okay. Forget about it. Look for something much more clearer. And that's the reason why we give so many things, so that at least you have more options, so that you don't really have to force issues on any one particular currency pair. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euros. So we're going to move on to the next set of currency pairs, which are the Australian dollar pairs. So we're going to start off with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out, and also an illustration of potentially what to expect. So price had just probed this region right here, and I was expecting maybe, just to get price just coming back in within here for us to look for the buys. Unfortunately, what I was anticipating was not quite met. You can see that the price just continued to rally up, just bounced off this area twice, and after that, you can see the buyers really came in, pushed to the upside during the US session, an attempt by these sellers to pushed down, but their attempt was unsuccessful, and the buyers continued to push the market to the upside. And you can see that at around 5:30, the market even picked up a bit more steam, pushing to the upside. So for this one, moving into today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So let's see what ends up happening. Hopefully we can get a pullback we can read. In terms of looking for the buys right now, that might not be a very good idea. You could easily end up hitting a buy there and you will be sent straight to the gallows. So just wait and see what ends up happening. At least give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You can't see that they've given the buyers issues within here. And at least if we do get the market pulling back in within this area right here, there's a possibility price could, although the Canadian dollar is also really getting hammered, just like the USD. But at least if we could get the market either pulling back in within here, that could be good. For those of you that read chart patterns, it seems that the market could be in some sort of, I can't remember what these things used to be called, because in any case, we don't really trade chart patterns. But generally, you can see that the buyers are pushing up, and the sellers are more or less holding within here. So there's some sort of a squeeze that's happening within that area there, but you could potentially find that there's a high probability price could possibly end up reaching to the upside. If that does end up being the case, at least if the market holds to the upside, then on the pullback, then we could try to see whether we could get some buying opportunities within this area here. So let's wait and see what happens on this one. Of course, also remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market comes back in within that region, also a region that we can also try to see whether we can get our buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. It was either price to come back in within here, or maybe we did get a proper breach to the upside and a hold within here. Potentially, we could have looked for the buying opportunities. You can see that the buyers came up strong within there. There was a bit of a fight. At least price did hold above this area right here. Just came shy of the SNR that we had, which was true SNR. Then after that, you can see that the market did actually push to the upside. And it's like the big boys, during the London session, pushed the market to the upside, broke the level. The market just sat pretty, within this area right here, then just waiting, for the 4 o'clock time to actually get there, for the US session to actually start. And you can see that the US big boys actually pushed the market to the upside quite aggressively. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can take note of them. So let's wait and see if we can get a proper pullback that we can read on this one. But like I pointed out, the USDs are really getting hammered. So it's either, and hopefully we're hoping that the market comes back in. At least if we get a proper pullback, we can read, stops out quite a number of, late buyers who are hitting buys right now, especially on this pullback coming in. That would be nice. If that doesn't happen, then at least if the market breaks to the upside, then we'll be waiting to see if we can get a pullback, back within this region right here to actually look for the buys. But in terms of looking for the buys right now, when the price is just holding just beneath, that region to the downside, might not really be the best of ideas, because the London big boys could easily push the market down. And then maybe the US big boys are actually the ones who could push the market back to the upside. And I mean, if those are the guys who are going to be doing looking for the buying opportunities, then we'll definitely end up joining them, because that's exactly what our game plan tells us we should be doing. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get some buys. So you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here, and you can see that it was either price to come back in within this region or potentially break above this region to the upside. You can see that there was a real fight that was really going on. If I zoom in within this region, you can see that the buyers and sellers were really fighting, and could have been a bit frustrating, especially for guys who got the buys within here. The market was just not moving. You're thrown into a lot of confusion, within that area there. But eventually, much later on, the market did break to the upside, just pulled back in within this region, and you can see that the market did push to the upside. Also good to see from the screenshots, Millicent did get this trade, which was good, and I also did manage the trade quite well. So we do have some pullback coming in on this one. You can see that the Asian big boys seem to be pushing to the downside, which is okay. At least it's what we want. As buyers, we do want to see the pullback coming in. The pullback has started. Let's see if we can get price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If that ends up being the case, then I think we could get some very, very good buying opportunities somewhere within here. Watching out for the times, hopefully maybe, at around 4, 5:30, maybe all through the London session, the market needs to set itself up. Then at least we'll see if the US big boys will get the job done for us. So last but not least, for the AUD pairs, we do have the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list, and we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Also, just looking at correlation, once again, for those of you that have an analytical mind, you will see that the AUD pairs are showing a lot of strength. All of them are actually going up, which also tells us that the big boys are also quite interested, in buying the AUDs. So that's also what we're going to be interested in doing. So this one has also been giving some sort of a pullback, which is something almost similar to AUD yen, which, if even that one is giving a pullback, it tells us that still the correlation is on, and the big boys definitely pushing in the same direction for this one. If it's a pullback, at least it's on all of them. When they start to move, maybe they'll all move together. So let's wait and see what happens within this region. Definitely a bunch of buyers are sitting here, and hopefully the market comes in somewhere as close as possible within here. At least we could get the buys somewhere within this region and definitely target within there. Manage your trade within this region right here. Even if you will be targeting high, if it breaks to the upside, for those of you that are trading, you could definitely scale in on the pullback and see how much more further the market could potentially move. So watch out for that. Also watch out for the region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but in case the market finds its way there, at least we definitely know that that's the last area where we will be attempting our aggressive buying opportunities. So that's pretty much it for the AUD pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the NZD pairs, and we're going to start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So we do have the conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative there. We do have the aggressive down within this region here. So you can see that this one, the market was going up yesterday. Definitely something to do with the NZD strength. And of course, the Canadian dollar pairs are also really getting hammered. So right now, the market is just attempting to break above this region to the upside. I really wouldn't suggest that you start looking for buys just yet. The price has been somewhere within this region before. Even if I put an SNR within there, price has been here before. And you can see that the previous time, in fact, the buyers had really stepped up, within this region quite aggressively, but the sellers were still able, to push back the market down. And you can see that the market is just back within this region here. So for this one, let's wait and see. Either those sellers could react, and if they do, there's a possibility we could get some pullback coming in. It's not a guarantee that price has to come back in here. There are quite a number of SNRs within here, but at least the farther away it gets from here, the better in terms of risk to reward moving to the upside. And at least if the pullback comes in somewhere within this region here, this is an area of interest, for us. So we'll be waiting to see what happens. Also, alternatively, what we could wait for, I think the best thing to do is to actually wait and see if we could get the price breaching above this area to the upside, because considering what's happening right now, if you do look for the buying opportunities, especially when the market comes back in within here, because it can easily come back within this area, you run the risk of actually getting caught up and, within these two regions right here, and the market just bouncing between these two regions, and it could actually end up getting very, very frustrating. So at least wait and see if you could get the market at least breaking above here to the upside on the pullback, then I think that might be a much, much better trade. So watch out for that. But of course, the major level is down here. Some of you are real cowboys, and I know you will be attempting some buying opportunities from there. The best thing us guys can do is advise you, but since you guys are in control of your money, the decision purely lies in your court. So if you do decide to jump in on that trade, then at least pointed out the risks that you could potentially end up facing if you do hit the buys, especially if the market is holding beneath that blue SNR that I've pointed out. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out for buys. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. You can see that the USD is also really getting hammered on this one. The pullbacks are extremely shallow. So hopefully we will get a deep pullback. And I'm really hoping that ends up being the case, especially if the market comes back in within this region, holds to the downside. We get that region, pushing to the downside and we get the market back within this area here, I think some very, very good buys could potentially end up happening off this region right here. So we'll be waiting for that. Alternatively, I mean, if the market comes down and let's say attempts to calm down and the sellers are able to sustain price to the downside of this scenario, the market actually holds within here, you could attempt some buying opportunities, but you'll need to watch out for this area. I mean, if the market can't blast through that region quite aggressively to the upside, then you could easily end up getting held hostage within this area, and the market could easily end up playing some sort of a ping pong game between these two regions right here. So also be well aware of that. Something almost similar to what I've pointed out on the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. You'll run the risk, but at least if the market does actually blast to the upside of this area, then at least at that point in time, you will be out of the woods. So watch out for that. And of course, watch out for the region at the bottom. Bit of a long shot, especially considering the fact that the USDs are really getting hammered. But if they do find some sort of strength and the market actually pulls back in, all the way back within that area, then at least you should be ready for that as well. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against Japanese yen. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list, and we'll be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one as well. So these are the three areas we will be, keeping our eyes locked on to wait and see what happens. We have some sort of a pullback coming in. Also potentially could be something to do with the yen pairs, because I mean, we've also seen this pullback happening on the rest of the yens. And hopefully the market comes back in within here. At least we'll try to see whether we could get some buying opportunities to come up back within here. We have this level here. It seems like it's hanging in the middle of nowhere. But based on I think on the 1 hour and the 4 hour time frame, it's actually a major level where we do have the next bunch of sellers sitting. So at least on the way up, we know that we could target somewhere within there. But at least even if you get the buy here, in as much as we could target here, much, much higher, just make sure that you also watch out for this particular region right here, because I mean, the market has turned off there before. It could easily end up turning off that region again. So I mean, when the market comes back in within that region, just make sure that you start doing some sort of money management, to avoid any disappointments that might be there. So watch out for that. Hopefully you've taken note of those three areas. And of course, the additional area right there, at least you have the pullback coming in. If you see, let's say, for example, like the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen moving, make sure that you also have a look at the rest of the NZDs to see if it's the NZDs, but also have a look at the rest of the yens, because also the yens tend to be well correlated most of the time. So also watch out for that. When the big boys start to jump in, then at least you'll also be ready for that. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. And you can see the three areas I had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. It seemed like the market had done some sort of two probes within here, and we're waiting for the sellers to show up. Unfortunately, they were nowhere to be seen. Remember, both the New Zealand dollar and the Swiss franc yesterday were giving issues. So this one clearly seemed like it was just a bunch of issues. So the market just held within here. Then after that, it went up a bit higher. The sellers were nowhere to be seen. And possibly maybe something to do with how the buyers had also stepped up within this region here. And it's like the sellers really had nothing to say within this region here. And unfortunately, also not within here. And of course, once the market broke to the upside of that region and held to the upside, there was definitely no trade for us. So for this one, we will be going the other way today. So we're not going to be looking for sales. We will be watching out to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be watching out for. We've got the market already giving us some sort of a pullback. Guess it's found some sort of a resistance area within this region here. The sellers are reacting, which is good. Let's just keep our fingers crossed to see if they could get somewhere as close as possible within this region here, and we get them coming in, maybe attempting, to take out these buyers, especially down within here. And if the buyers do actually show up and the market holds to the upside, I think at that point in time, we could actually look for some very, very good buying opportunities to come up with the market. But remember, it's not a guarantee price has to get back within here. There's also some sort of a minor scenario within this region. And I mean, if the sellers do come in and they really struggle within this area, you still could potentially get some very good buying opportunities to come up. The only thing that you'll have to really watch out for is getting some proper risk to reward. We're only looking at about 18 pips going up. And that means you'll definitely need to have a stop loss of maximum, maybe 9 to get a 1:2 coming up back within here. But at least if the market comes in a bit deeper, back within this region here, at least we'll have more risk to reward to the upside, nearly almost 30. So that means that at least if we get the deeper pullbacks, at least this buy might be better. But I mean, if the market gives us somewhere back within here now, the choice is purely based on how good you are in terms of trading and if you can get the best risk to reward that you can on that particular trade. But if it's too problematic, like we keep on advising, don't really force any issues. Take something that's much, much more clear. And that's the reason why we end up looking at so many things. At least that gives you a wider variety of what you can end up looking out for. If something doesn't tickle your fancy, leave it. Move on to something that's much more clear. So that's pretty much it in terms of the NZDs. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. So you can see silver and gold on the buy side, the commodities and the indices on the sell side. So we're going to start off with the NAS 100. So for this one, yesterday and today, we're watching out for selling opportunities. So you can see the 3 areas I had pointed out, which are the exact same areas that we're going to be having and watching out for today. So in the morning, price was here. And I pointed out that based on the fact that we had this probe, let me just zoom in. I pointed out that based on the fact that we had this probe right here, there was a high probability that the market could potentially even just push to the downside, of this region here. Considering the fact that we had this is a telltale sign that the sellers were there. The market really struggled within this region right here, but you can see that the market even started to come down all through the London session. So you can see that there was also some sort of an attempt, of the buyers to push to the upside. Sellers came in. Of course, this is something that needed to be read on a smaller time frame, but at least if we did attempt sales there, at least you can see that the market came down back in all the way to within that region, although the market really struggled. If you look at how the sellers were coming in, those guys were really struggling. And once the market tapped within here, you can see much later on the buyers really pushed the market to the upside quite fast. So for this one, the levels are the same. At least the sell did work out during the London session, which was quite odd, considering the fact that the commodities and the indices tend to move a lot, especially during the US session. But I guess the London big boys pushed the market to the downside and the big boys in the US did the reverse. So let's wait and see what happens. The market seems to be getting into some sort of a range, within this area here. The buyers have come up aggressive, but in terms of looking for the sells, we won't be looking for any sells unless we get the market maybe coming back in within this region. Maybe we get the hold, maybe some attempts of the buyers to push to the upside, which end up being unsuccessful. And once we get that confirmation, this confirmation right here that we're fully back in the range, at least if we get the sells that come down, at least you should be targeting the bottom of the range. Because, I mean, when the market comes down within here and you don't do some sort of money management, you can see how fast the market turned within here. And sometimes, and I've pointed this out quite a number of times, the market only gives you one chance to manage. If you don't, it's game over for you. So just make sure that you're really on top of things in terms of money management. So moving on into the next one, this is the US 30. So for this one, yesterday we're also watching out for sells. So you can see what the game plan was. The levels are still the same as today. So price was somewhere here. Wanted to see whether we could get price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this area here, and hopefully end up getting the sellers really coming in. You can see that the market had probed within there. Maybe true SNR could have potentially been somewhere maybe a bit lower, somewhere within this region here. Because it seems like the market was really holding within there, came down during the London session, then during the US session, it was already back within here. And you can see that the buyers did actually come in quite aggressive, just like we saw in the NAS 100. So for this one, it's almost somehow similar to the NAS 100. So we'll also be trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities on this one. The game plan is the same. So I guess even for this one, we'll be waiting to see if we can get the price coming back within this region here, maybe some attempts to push to the upside, which end up being unsuccessful. Once we get that confirmation, at least we'll know that the market is somehow back also within some sort of a range that's here. This one is not very clear because to some extent it seems like the levels could be there. But all we know is that there's a major level, down within this region here. And at least if we get the market coming back into the downside, at least we'll try to see whether we could get some selling opportunities to come back in within here. So also watch out for the region at the top. I mean, the market could easily bounce off here and you could find the market back in within here. Same thing as the NAS 100, but at least even if that ends up being the case, it's just a matter of waiting, let the buyers do their thing. If the market slows down when it comes back in within that aggressive area, then at least we'll see if we can't get a sign of the sellers coming in and potentially end up getting some very good selling opportunities. If the market breaks and holds above that region to the upside, then I guess we'll just start to have looking for buying opportunities much more confidently. If you look for buys now, it's okay, but just remember that the buying opportunities that you're going to be watching out for on the NAS 100 and the US 30 are counters, and the opposite party could easily come at you at any given point in time, without any warning. So moving on into the next one, this is silver. So for silver yesterday, the bias was to try see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can't see the three areas I had pointed out. And for as long as we're holding above here, the bias was to try see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So in the morning, price was here. We're expecting the pullback. That didn't happen. The market pushed to the upside. And this is a very good example of why patience is key when it comes to trading. So eventually, you can see that the price did actually come back in and tapped within this region here. Apologies for that. So came back in within this region here. And you can see that this was more or less during the US session. So at 4, price was high up there. And you can see that the price just came back in at around 5:30. The market actually took off to the upside from within this area quite aggressively. So this one, it was just a matter of patience. And you can see that the market is still sustaining, above this region to the upside. But we're expecting to possibly get some sort of a pullback coming back in, back within this area here. It's a major level that the market broke. And at least if we do get price coming back, within this semi-aggressive conservative region, I think some very, very good buying opportunities could happen off there. The market is in some sort of an upward trend. Consider it broke this region to the upside, came back in. So I'm expecting, that potentially we could get the market, price coming back in within there. So let's wait and see what happens. If that doesn't happen, then I guess we'll have to wait for the breach of that. And maybe the next best buy could be happening somewhere off this region right here. So do watch out for that as well. So hopefully you've taken note of that. But in terms of looking for the buying opportunities right now, might not really be the best of ideas, but just holding beneath sellers region. So like we always keep on pointing out, remember, the key is to always buy with buyers, sell with sellers. And right now, if you hit the buys high up there, then you're buying with sellers, which is not the way things should be working. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold yesterday, the bias was also to try see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So you can see the 3 areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was here. We just needed to be patient for price to come back in within this region. I had pointed out that the market was potentially getting into some sort of a range within here. The sellers were at the top. The sellers did their thing. They reacted, pushed the price back in within here, although quite aggressive. And you can see that off this area, the market bounced off this region to the upside at around 5:30. Similar situation to what we've seen on silver. So it was just a matter of being patient on this one. So for this one, the levels are pretty much almost the same, just a slight adjustment on the levels, but the regions are pretty much almost the same. So these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. The market seems to be in some sort of a range. You don't really want to be hitting the buys just yet. It's either, at least if the market breaks to the upside and we get a breach of structure, and wait for that confirmation that price is actually holding above this region to the upside, at least at that point in time, we could actually try to see whether we could get some buys. But considering the fact that to some extent, we're getting into some sort of a range and you're not quite sure whether the sellers within there could react, you easily could find price coming back in within this region, right? And you could find some proper buys could actually happen off this region to push to the upside. So let's see what happens. Definitely, there's a minor SNR somewhere within this area here. But unless you're a real cowboy and the market comes back in within here and you read what happens maybe on a smaller time frame, maybe on the 3-minute, 1 minute, just to get a quick buy off this area, just to come back in within this area. But I would best suggest, instead of really also trying to force, sometimes when you're going down to the 3-minute and the 1 minute, to some extent, it feels like you're really trying to force a setup. So it's not really something you can actually read on the 15-minute time frame, also just to give you proper risk to rewards. Because, when you're looking at the 15-minute time frame, you also get some proper risk to rewards. When you go down to the 3 and the 1, risk to reward is actually thrown out of the window. And most scalpers actually don't have, and they don't factor in risk to reward because it's actually very, very hard. But at least if we get some proper pullback, we can read. There's a high probability price could be coming back in within this region, especially for the guys who have been in the sniper program and the guys who've done the one-on-one. You will understand why this is an area of interest. And most probably you will find price coming back in within here. Let's just be patient. Let's wait and see what happens. Of course, remembering the region at the bottom, in case the market finds its way back within there and the big boys do need that price, we should also be ready for that as well. But at least for as long as we're holding above this region to the upside, the buyers should be to look for buying opportunities. If you get a quick counter that makes sense and follows your plan, not something that you're jumping in because you're greedy, then it's also perfectly fine. Because I mean, every trade you should be taking should be a trade that follows your plan. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So hopefully you guys have taken note of everything we've discussed. So I guess we can look at the chat box real quick to see if there are any questions or requests. So I see AI music. I think that should be Tony. You're saying good morning, team and everyone. Good morning to you too. Karibu sana. Tony, always good to see you here. So I'm not really seeing any requests or any comments. I guess everything is clear. Remember, if it's not, at least you do have the provision to rewatch this, at least on YouTube. Also, remember to give us a like and a subscribe when you're there. That also does end up helping out our channel. We've helped you. You can also help us in return by also liking and subscribing. Also turning on the bell notification so that at least anytime we do go live, then at least you will be notified. If you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there. Also, if you're struggling with your trading, also feel free to reach out to us, but you can also sign up for the AMP. I think there should be a link in the video description that should get you there, give you more information, but also feel free to visit our website, www.afriforex.com. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. May the peeps be with you. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Majaliwa. God bless.